Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Battleworld #1. It's the 40th anniversary of the original Secret Wars. That's the reason this exists, but that's the only reason this exists. This is a weird play. The idea that what they're playing here, and we've had these, hey, let's go back and tell the tales of, Spidey. Let's do this. Peter David was doing a lot of that stuff, but it felt like not just, hey, we're going to go between these two panels in Secret Wars. They actually have had some things like this with Deadpool. There was that Secret Wars where they actually show, and that actually seemed kind of clever where, oh, I'm going to show you this. And behind the scenes, Deadpool was doing a lot of crazy stuff. People just forgot about it. That was kind of fun. And I said it earlier, me and you did a whole podcast series on Secret Wars that if you want to listen to it, it's over on our Patreon, patreon.com/weirdScience. But even so, when we went through it, we never thought we need some things, or why is that happening? Or there wasn't anything, obviously. So when you go and try to play this game, I think you have to be more clever than this. You have to be more clever than saying, oh, by the way, this story happened between these two panels on the side of a comic book. Hey, here we go. And really all you have is Spider-Man in the black suit wanting a snack and wandering off and getting pretty much captured by the Beyonders, plural, so that they can do a couple little tests because they think the Beyonder, singular, is a bunch of nonsense. They think that he's just throwing shade the complete time at the Beyonder. And when you get to the end, I'm like, all we're going to do by the end of this, in my mind, is wipe Spidey's mind somehow. Everybody's not going to remember this because they end up going back and never mentioning it. So all this is probably just going to be, like they say, we're going to test you to see if you're up to par. You're pretty good. Get back to the Secret Wars, you little scamp.
Yeah, because there's no constraints. Like, he just goes off to an ice planet, then he goes to another place, and there's no time involved. It's basically just
jumping through like a weird... It's not a multiverse. It's pocket dimensions. They have set things up, but even then you're like, what are they testing?
Throw everything in the kitchen sink at Spider-Man and see how he does.
To see how he does. And then even in a way, and it may just be me, but as it's going and you have this narration, again, it seems like the Beyonders, they're talking about how the Beyonder, he's lame. He didn't know what he was doing. He got, and they do mention the stuff. If you haven't read Secret Wars, it does give you a little bit going on. Oh my God, Dr. Doom, he stole the power. Oh my God, they're doing this. You have all that play. And that's kind of the deal of, look at him. He was so lame. He got his power taken, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, well, we'll see what happens later with you Beyonders, because you're going to get the same thing happen to you. But in the 2015 deal, but in the play here, it almost feels like, and you may agree or disagree, that they even kind of think if Spider-Man dies, it's not really going to, he's not really going to die. They'll just send him back. Like, this seems like they're just going to test him to a limit. And if he can survive this, then they know he's pretty good on their own testing, but they're still going to, they have to. They have to send him back anyway. So
yeah, of course.
It's just one of those things, like, again, you're setting up no real...
And you can't even have the costume doing Venom stuff because that hadn't been established yet. So it's...
Yeah, so it's just him in a black costume.
Yeah.
At one point, because Johnny Storm shows up.
I didn't even see what was going on there.
It just looks like on the shoulder it starts to dissipate a little. It starts to pull away, and he's like, oh my... But it wasn't a wow moment because you could barely see anything. But this is written by, and again, I'll say, it's Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Battleworld. It's written by Tom DeFalco, art by Pat Olliffe, John Cleese on colors. I could barely read these credits, too.
I know.
It's going back to the Star Wars nonsense. Letter, thesis, Joe Caramagna. I was actually going to bring up Star Wars, too. When me and Matt did our Star Wars podcast, that we had enough of that Dark Droids of Bail.
R.I.P.
The R.I.P. The idea where you couldn't go too far because you end up having another point coming up. You end up having Return of the Jedi because the Star Wars books, if you're not aware, happen between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. This happens where a panel later, Peter's got to go back and Johnny, and so you can't really do that much. There's not going to be much stakes. You're not going to have much tension because he does end up going back. But
it literally says, see what happens between these two panels. That's like crazy. And also, Secret Wars is 1984, and last time I checked, we're 2023, so I don't think that's the 40th anniversary, but I guess we'll go with it.
Yeah, we'll go with it. So Peter goes, and the whole play is him just like, I don't know where I am. The Beyonder must be responsible. Then you have a narration of, ooh, the Beyonder isn't. It's us, the Beyonders. And then Peter will go to the next thing where he's fighting a wolf, a big giant wolf man. I think the Beyonders, it just keeps repeating. Man. It's just the idea of, oh man, what's the Beyonder up to? Oh my God. And even such lines, because again, couldn't tell you that I really care much either way about Tom DeFalco. I actually went back to look if I ever reviewed anything by Tom DeFalco. I have, and hated everything. It's only a couple little DC things. He ended up filling in at one point for like a thing in Justice League, and I look back at my review, and basically I said this is generic, and it feels like an issue that was sitting around forever. This here is generic, and it's just an odd play because he's just doing things, and like you said, the Beyonders are then going to whip Peter to the next thing, and then the next thing, as you see a little catch up with the whole Secret Wars, but eventually you just end up where, okay, he defeats these ice giants and wolfmen. He gets caught up in a whirlpool of nonsense and ends up in what at first I thought Arcade had a pinball machine, but this is more of that very Fantastic Four, classic Silver Age type cosmic, where he realizes right away. He's like, oh my God, here I am. The Beyonder must be doing this again. Oh, here, I better not go through that portal, but I'll go through this. And he ends up just in the next spot where you just have just random things. I mean,
lizard monsters fighting other lizard monster swamp things,
all connected to
tank monsters.
Yeah, they look like weird toys, but that's the thing. That's what it's supposed to look like. It's a Secret Wars, but nobody's buying these toys. These are the most horrific toys.
No parents buying.
Nobody's saying, "I want the swamp monster with the tank tracks." I know somebody's going to say he would like it. Again, that's who I was thinking of, but this isn't quite that. So fighting that, along with what looks like huge forehead, multi-eyed Kangs, maybe? Yeah. Zombies fighting. They even have, and they're riding on cockroaches. All right. And then out of nowhere, oh my God, Johnny Storm shows up, and you end up where they're going to fight. Peter at one point says, you wouldn't be in my top 10 of people I even like. That felt weird.
Yeah, we went through the entire list and we decided he was actually number one on his list.
Yeah, or like a superhero deal. I mean, it's an amazing friend there. So they're there. They end up in it. But at this issue, I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I don't get from this first issue any clear-cut idea of, okay, well, they have to do this, this, and this to get out of this. They have to do this, this, and this. This just seems like the random musings of the Beyonders who think it's pretty cool to just throw Peter into wacky stuff between panels with Johnny and then just say, hey, look at this, because then they end up in like this rundown life after people city. Zombies. Then they don't know what's going on. They're attacked by zombies. But this isn't like you're going with, okay, I get it. What they're doing is if Marvel Zombies was around in the 80s, they would have had some, because it doesn't feel that.
Well, it's more like the 2015 Secret Wars where they have the zombies
and again,
over the wall.
I got the idea at one point that, what they're going to do is if these things existed at the time, it'd be cool for toys and we'll do it. But it doesn't feel like that. It never feels like it gets to that point. Because then you just end up having Johnny Storm show up. Why did you do this? And it's not like he is aware that, Peter, what did you do? Spidey, you made me come here. Why did you do this? I just wanted a snack. Oh, man, it's your fault. Then you end up Absorbing Man shows up. He's whipping the ball around. He's doing his thing. Then you get the Hobgoblin out of nowhere. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, and this is where, when we talked about it when we did our big podcast deal, you end up, Secret Wars is a goofy play of, it's a huge thing that really was to sell toys, but it ended up a lot more fun and actually good than you would think something that was just thrown out there to sell toys. Like at that point, any Saturday morning cartoon would do, but it actually ended up pretty good. We enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun with it. So when you do this, I'm like, I'm not getting the fun of it. I don't really get any sort of blueprint of, oh, I get it. This is what they're doing. It just feels like, oh, you know who wasn't in Secret Wars? Hobgoblin. Here he is. Like, all right. You know what else wasn't? Zombies. Here they are. Oh, my God, Absorbing Man. He's there just to take the power from Johnny so that Spider-Man has to run. And then we just end. Like, this stinks.
Yeah,
it really does. This, when people find out, if you end up where you're just listening to the podcast, and you heard us say, the next up is this Battleworld book, you're probably going to think to yourself, ooh, that sounds like a bunch of nothingness. That is nothing that I was aware of or I wanted to read. I'm going to tell you, you're right on, spot on, because that's what it is. The idea that the Secret Wars was to sell toys, goofy deal, and ended up being that good is the antithesis of this, where you're trying to do something clever, and then you get surface level nothing and just throw things at people. It's not good at all. And I seem like I'm getting angry. Not that angry. I just end up like, I thought that this was going to be something me and you would have fun with because we did Secret Wars. If it was done in some sort of clever way, this doesn't even feel like they had a pitch to go. They just said, oh, God, there's an anniversary.
If you want to reminisce about it, just go back and read the original, because a lot of people probably haven't even read that since it's 40 years old.
Yeah, and if you have the app, just go do that. Or
then read Secret Wars 2, and then read Crisis on Infinite Earths, and never read this. Basically.
No.
There's no need.
No need. So I'll tell you what it does, where you get one issue, maybe the next 3, because this is 4 issues. Maybe
I'll still read through it just to see.
Oh, yeah, we'll probably review it just to see.
Yeah,
but
why not?
It actually lessens my enthusiasm for the whole Secret Wars in one single issue where I'm like, yeah, this isn't fun or
it's
cool.
One thing if, like, we had never seen the black costume in 40 years and it's back or something like that, but we see it all the time, so you don't even get anything good from that.
Is anybody sitting there and saying, like, oh, my God, what would have been cool? Secret Wars would have been so much cooler if Hobgoblin was involved.
Yeah.
Anybody? I mean, nobody's really thinking. That's why you have to have something clever. This just feels like it's just thrown out there. What would you give it?
I'll give it a flat 5. Not even a special one, just a regular 5.
The art's pretty good. I actually like the art. It's pretty cool. But it's not, again, my biggest problem, it's not fun at all.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.